Welcome back to our course on Project 2019 Advanced. In the preceding section, we looked at some of the practical aspects of sharing and consolidation, and in particular at how a project manager can work separately on a project, which is actually part of a consolidated project. In this section, we're going to start by looking at another important basic question, and that is, how do you maintain a resource pool? So what I'm going to do on this occasion from the shared location is just to open the resource pool. Now with these three options, it's important to bear in mind that when we talk about updates to the resource pool, we're really talking about two different things. One type of update is where it's actually changing the information in the pool. So for example, like a pay rate, as the example there says, or perhaps somebody's initials or a group or a calendar. The other type of change isn't really a change to the resource pool at all. It's a change to an assignment. And in this case, it's the sort of running total that the resource pool keeps of assignments for each of its resources. Now, if you open the pool using the first option, Open Resource Pool Read Only, allowing others to work on projects connected to the pool, you can look at the properties of the resources. You can't make changes to them, but you can certainly look at the pool and maybe run off some reports. So let's open the resource pool, in this case as read only. And a very important point to make here is that when you do this, you're basically taking a snapshot of the resource pool at a moment in time. And of course, other project managers may well be working on their projects either individually, or maybe somebody's got the all project open. And it's quite likely that they'll be making changes that affect the resource pool. Now, if at any time you want to refresh the information you have in the copy of the resource pool that you're looking at, if you go to the Resource tab and to Resource Pool, one of the options there is Refresh Resource Pool. And that will update the information that is available to you. Conversely, if you have the resource pool open, and you're making changes such as resource assignments and so on, if at any stage you want to update the resource pool with the changes you're making, then you click the option below Refresh Resource Pool, which is Update Resource Pool. Now that's grayed out at the moment because I'm not in a situation that I could possibly need to make any updates. And just while we're looking at this, one other thing. I showed you this earlier on. I'd just like to emphasize this as a bit of a useful technique. Let's suppose that I don't have resource sheet view here, and I have, say, resource usage instead. It's very often extremely useful to insert project in here. So if we add a new column, and remember these are listed alphabetically, and we're going to scroll down and select project. And remember, that will give you the location of the project files. And one other thing to be aware of, so let me jump back to the resource tab again. If you look at the resource pool and click on Share Resources, the Share Resources dialog here for the resource pool itself shows you a list of the files or the projects that are using this particular resource pool. And again, that can be very useful information. Now let's look at the second option, Open Resource Pool Read Write, so that you can make changes to resource information like pay rates, etc., although this will lock others out of updating the pool with new information. If what you need to do is to do something like change pay rates or any other fundamental change to the information about one or more resources, then you're going to need to open the resource pool read write. Now, when you do that, you don't stop other users opening projects that share the resource pool from opening their projects, but they won't be able to make changes to the resource information. Now the third option is in a way a variation on the second option. Open Resource Pool Read Write and all other sharer files into a new master project file. You can access this new master project file from the View tab, Switch Windows command. Now, so far when we've been talking about project consolidation, the implication of what I've done is that there is an element of permanence to this all project in this case. This all is, if you like, the framework that contains the 4 sub-projects. And I've really done that on the basis that this would be something that would continue throughout the life of the overall project. But in some cases, either you don't need that, or in fact that creates its own problems, such as the fact that it restricts how many users manage their projects. And it may actually be better for the users to keep their projects completely separate on a day-to-day basis. They can still share the resource pool, but the projects are not permanently consolidated into a master project. However, it may be that once a week, for example, you need to run a report, and in order to run that report, you need all the projects together in a master project file. So that's the third option, and I'll leave you to experiment with that one. And that just leaves me with a couple of other things I'd like to cover in this section. And one of them is that I've shown you how to share resources, but what about stopping sharing resources? The most important thing to remember if you want to stop sharing is that you need to have the pool and the file open. So I'm going to open the resource pool, in this case, as read-write. And then I'm also going to open the gala dinner file. Now, one way of doing that is if I go to the resource pool and click Share Resources, I can go to the gala dinner file here and click Open. And as we know, the gala dinner file shares resources. So let's go to the resource pool and share resources. And at the moment it says use resources from the resources file. So let's change that back to use own resources. Now, if I close the gala dinner file and make sure that I save the changes, and if I now look in the resource pool and share resources, you can see that gala dinner is no longer listed as one of those files. So let me now close the resource pool and save the changes. And I'm going to go back and open the gala dinner file again. And of course, if I now look at its resource sheet, I just have the 3 resources that we saw earlier on. And of course, under Resource Pool and Share Resources, it says Use Own Resources. Finally, in this section, I'd like to look at one other thing. Now, I just stopped the gala dinner from sharing resources, and I've opened Charity Event All again. Let's just look at the resource sheet. Now, note that the resource sheet has now still got the 9 resources from the shared pool, but it recognizes now that because one of the sub-projects doesn't share resources with the others, its resources are shown on the sheet as well. So this makes a point, first of all, about the fact that the resources are now coming from 2 different places, but also that within a consolidated project, you don't have to have only projects that share the same resource pool. They can share a resource pool and they can have their own resources, etc. And the very last thing, if I just go back to the Gantt view, if I wanted to stop, say, the gala dinner from being an inserted project, so instead of being a sub-project, I just want its task to be in the all project, it's a pretty straightforward thing to do. All I need to do is to select the sub-project, right-click, and select information. And that brings up the Inserted Project Information dialog box, and I'm going to jump straight away to the Advanced tab. Now, the thing that specifies that this is an inserted project and that the information here is linked to the separate project file at that location is this checkbox just here, the one that's currently checked and says linked project. If I uncheck that box and click on OK, and now look at that sub-project, you can see that it's no longer showing as an inserted sub-project. It's actually just a set of tasks within the all project file. And one thing to bear in mind here is that when you convert an inserted sub-project back to being separate tasks again, that's not a reversible process. So make sure that you've got backup copies of where you started from. So that's it for this section. I will see you in the next one.